This week on the show, there is change afoot over at Etsy and at eBay and at Mercari, and I'm going to bring you a baker's dozen what sold, a bunch of books, including two of the most profitable items I have ever sold. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 254 of the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and I will be your host as we go through a pretty hefty helping of reselling news. Nothing super major, just some changes and, of course, some glitches or potential glitches at some of the sites. Mercari's made an update that I think will make buyers at least more aware of what's going on over there. Won't necessarily make anybody happy, I don't think, but nonetheless, there are some changes over there that we're going to talk about. And then in the What Sold recap, I've got 13 items for you, showing once again that you can make money selling books on eBay and Etsy, including two of the most profitable items I've ever sold here at the Galaxy. So with that, a little bit of housekeeping out of the way, let's get into this reselling news.
News updates.
So there's some changes going on over at Etsy, and the big one is an update to their mature content policy with new limitations on nudity, adult toys, and sexual accessories. So this appeared over on Value Added Resource. I think actually most of these today are from Value Added Resource, and I will, of course, link to all of these in the show notes and the video description down below. But essentially what Etsy has done is updated their adult, nudity, sexual, and mature content policy to crack down on explicit content and items that have proliferated, they say, across the site, causing what they call brand damage as well as media and investor scrutiny. Etsy said in a statement that they're deeply committed to marketplace integrity and keeping Etsy a safe and delightful place for users around the world. Our policies are designed to protect our global community and maintain our position as the destination for truly special creative goods. Etsy has long had policies in place, they say, that prohibit certain mature content and provide guidance on how to appropriately list adult items. I don't actually list anything really in that category, so I haven't really looked too deeply into this, but if you do, you definitely want to be aware because this is causing a pretty big kerfluffle among people in that category. Today, they say we are building on this foundation, updating our standards, and introducing more rigorous guidelines. These policies can be found in our adult nudity and sexual content policy and will take effect on July 29th, so 3.5 weeks from now. We carefully crafted this policy with the goal of continuing to enable creative expression and the spirit of our marketplace while taking into account evolving industry standards and best practices so that we can, they say, continue to keep our users safe. A few key changes to the policies include significantly limiting the types of adult toys and sexual accessories that can be sold on Etsy. Some categories of adult toys and sexual accessories are prohibited. I assume some have been prohibited all along, but they are expanding that to, from what I can gather from some of the message boards, a huge number of items that previously would have been allowed that are no longer going to be allowed over there. It is now more clear, they say, which specific types of adult and sexual items are allowed if listed appropriately. You can see more detail by following the link in this message, apparently, that went out. There's no link that I can see in this particular article. Prohibiting items that depict sex acts and genitalia, photographs and photorealistic depictions of sex acts and genitalia, even if they are obscured in listing images, are prohibited. Adult nudity is generally permitted, they said, if it is non-realistic, like paintings and sculptures, and again, only if listed appropriately. Pornography in any form is never allowed on Etsy. Introducing stricter criteria for listing images that feature mature content in content, including permitted nudity and permitted sexual content, may not appear in the public areas of your account, including but not limited to your shop home, username, or avatar. If your listing includes mature content, the first thumbnail image must be adequately obscured. Please note that these policies apply to all listings on Etsy, including content produced using the dreaded artificial intelligence. We encourage you to read through our new adult nudity and sexual content policy, as well as our updated guidance for listing mature content correctly. So if you sell in that category, they've at least given you a couple of resources to go look at to decide whether this is something that you're going to be able to continue. Most of the sellers that I've seen commenting on this seem to think that this is all but the death knell, really, for adult content on Etsy. We will begin enforcing these changes, they said, on July 29th, and removing listings that are not compliant in the coming weeks. We will also communicate directly with sellers who may need to update their listing images to be compliant. Etsy, this article points out, has increasingly come under fire in the last year for allowing illegal, counterfeit, or policy-violating goods to flood the marketplace, leading to changes in the enforcement of Etsy's policies, which legitimate sellers worry could harm their businesses if not implemented and executed well, which they say we saw when a technical glitch took down visibility of best-selling items in error during a routine sweep earlier this month. So this program is probably fraught with peril, as a lot of these things are over there. Hopefully, it's not a big deal, but it probably is going to be problematic. There will probably be things taken down that should not be taken down. So just keep an eye on your listings if you've got anything that's even in the fringes of what would be considered an adult category. Unfortunately, they add the bot Dragnet often gets it wrong, harming legitimate sellers while allowing bad actors to remain, as clearly indicated by troubling reports that AI generated celebrity deepfake porn was not just allowed for sale on the site, but was actively promoted by the company's recommendation and related search features. Another area where AI just really, for me, has not proven to be up to the task. We talked a little bit about AI on Wednesday in the live in the area of the eBay item descriptions. I may cover that in a little more depth actually next Wednesday, because I got a lot of comments on that particular part of our discussion. Some folks really like the AI. Other folks do not. If you were there Wednesday, you kind of know already what my opinion is on it. I don't think a lot of this is ready for prime time just yet. Etsy also recently updated their prohibited items policy with some specific additions and removals aimed at political activism, and given the platform wider latitude to remove items that it deems violent, degrading, or hateful. So you want to be aware of that. They're cracking down on political items as well. The timing of these changes is also very interesting. Just days before the update, Etsy was explicitly name-checked in Supreme Court arguments about content moderation laws passed in Florida and Texas in response to concerns that social media companies were censoring their users, particularly those with conservative viewpoints. So all of that is going on over at Etsy in their kind of adult categories. So if you sell in or around those categories, be aware of that. This next item, also at Etsy, this was, I don't know if this is by design or if it's a glitch or quite what's going on here, but Etsy ad campaigns, some sellers are saying, have been set up and turned on without seller permission as new listing form bugs continue. Etsy sellers say ad campaigns are being set up without their permission, costing them extra fees and raising concerns about ongoing glitches with the new Etsy listing form. The issue appears to be impacting on-site advertising. So this is promoting your items to be shown in search on Etsy, not the offsite ad program, which is separate from the ad campaign and automatically kicks in once you've done $10,000 in annual sales. One seller said, this evening at Etsy have started up my ads with $1 a day budget. Check your accounts, folks, because I didn't authorize this. I already pay through the nose for offsite ads. I'm not paying more. I only knew about it as I had an email in my spam file. Somehow they have managed to charge me for 2 days worth as well, even though I only got the email 5 hours ago. Another seller said the same happened to me, an unauthorized ad campaign running for $1 a day. Managed to spot it in time. This is a serious breach of trust. Another seller noted, I renewed 3 listings today, one expiring, one expired, and one inactive. The expiring listing, which was the last day before its expiration, had all its current settings, but both the expired and the inactive ones had Etsy ads set to on by default. I had to turn them off manually. Some sellers believe this may be tied to Etsy retiring the old listing form on June 26th and forcing sellers to switch over to the new form, despite all the bugs that we've talked about over the last few weeks. Others, of course, said the glitch was perhaps an intentional decision by Etsy executive leadership to try to boost revenue. That's probably a particularly cynical thought, but I suppose you can't rule it out. What I did to avoid this problem altogether, I ran for a while. I was running an ad campaign when I was doing print-on-demand shirts and mugs and that kind of stuff, trying to promote those. It didn't really do much, but what I did essentially was I went into my settings in Etsy. So I'll go to your marketing tab, go to Etsy ads, and if you have an active campaign, whether you're trying to run anything in it or not, it will show here, and you can put that campaign on pause. And then once that's done, none of these listings can automatically go because your campaign is turned off. So if you want to be running a campaign and you want to select some items to be involved in it and some items not to be involved in it, you're just going to have to keep an eye on each individual listing. But if you just don't want to get caught up in this at all, go to your marketing tab, go to Etsy ads. And if you have a campaign that is showing as active, even if there are no items currently in it, just pause that campaign. You can see if you're looking at the screen on YouTube, mine says restart your campaign because I paused mine last week because I was seeing this same thing where some listings, as I went through the new form, the little slider, checkbox, whatever for advertise this item was turned on by default. Again, I don't know whether that's a glitch or whether it was purposeful, but either way, I found that the quickest way was to just disable my ad campaign completely. Moving over to eBay, this was an interesting one. eBay introduced automatic positive feedback for new sellers over in the United Kingdom. So this is only in the UK and it's only for really very new sellers. They're introducing an automatic positive feedback rating for new sellers in the UK to, quote, help users buy and sell with confidence as global feedback and ratings overhaul continues. UK buyers and sellers first noticed this new feature back in May, raising questions about when automatic feedback is triggered and what happens if a buyer wants to leave manual feedback after eBay has already stepped in. This person said they just chatted to eBay over the computer with what I thought was a simple question, but the person I asked didn't seem to know. If you've ever called or talked to anyone at eBay, this is not an uncommon thing to run into. Can anyone here let me know? They said, I've switched on my computer, gone into eBay, and noticed an extra feedback. It says eBay automated feedback. It doesn't say that it came from the buyer. Can anyone tell me why I've had this and what it's all about? The automatic feedback essentially just says this seller successfully completed an order. Instead of showing the buyer details, it says the comment comes from eBay automated feedback. eBay community rep Marco was at first just as perplexed as everyone else, requesting for the original commenter to provide a screenshot. And when one was provided, he said he would send it in for review and update as soon as he had more info. That was on May 20th, and there have been no further updates forthcoming. The seller, they said, is relatively new to the site and said the buyer was able to come back later and leave quote unquote proper feedback, at which point the automatic feedback, which had been left by eBay for that transaction, disappeared. What happened is when the buyer left me her proper feedback, the automatic feedback disappeared. I've had some again from Russian dolls I sold. The buyer hasn't left me any yet. They said, I wonder if, as I'm a new eBayer, actually learning from mom as she's been doing it since 2009. If I don't get feedback after I've ticked every box, if it's a new system that eBay has set up to help new sellers. eBay UK help page finally did say, updated to provide the following information, saying eBay will step in when a buyer doesn't leave feedback within 7 days of the estimated delivery date. The buyer hasn't reported any issues with the transaction, and the seller has received 10 or less feedback ratings. So this is for very, very new sellers over in the UK on eBay. Sellers were also discussing the feature over on Reddit. After a time, if the buyer hasn't left you feedback, it shows eBay automated feedback instead of the buyer's username. And again, it just says the seller has completed an order. This is similar to what Mercari does with their rating system. The buyer has 3 days once they receive the item to rate you. And if they do not, Mercari automatically, and this is for everybody, this isn't just for new sellers, they automatically give you a 5-star rating. And I believe it says words to that same effect. This is an automated feedback, automated rating left by Mercari, and then you're able to cash out your earnings from that sale. So I would have no problem with this if they rolled this out. I mean, I've done 22,000 odd sales and have well less than 10,000 feedbacks. Really just over 9,000 if I'm not mistaken. So the feedback rate is well less than 50% anyway. Again, I'm not particularly sold that feedback is all that big a deal. You can let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube what you think of that. But for me, it's nice to have, but it's not not that big a deal. This was another one, and again, I don't know if it's a glitch. eBay Send Offer Change removes the option to add coupons, curtailing repeat buyer activity. So this came out on July 3rd. The user interface design changes for eBay Send Offer functionality appear to have removed the option to add a coupon to be used for a future order when sending seller-initiated offers, which of course potentially curtails an important tool sellers can use to help drive repeat buying traffic. The pop-up for sending offers changed, and I no longer see the option to include a coupon code with the offers to be sent. Is anyone else noticing this, or is the option still there and I'm just not finding it? They have on here 2 images of what the screen looked like before and what the screen looks like now. This screenshot does not have it. However, if you look on mine, we'll scroll down here if I can, and mine still has it. So this is, I don't, again, I talked about this. I left a comment on Liz, who runs Value Added Resource, on a Facebook post of hers. The inconsistency and the lack of transparency is what makes this so difficult. You don't know if eBay is running a test, or if there's a problem, or if this is a new policy. It's hard to wrap your head around why some sellers see things and other sellers don't. Here's a prime example. This started happening 3 or 4 days ago, and mine still looks like it has always looked. I still have the ability to send coupons for future purchases when I send out an offer. So I don't know what's going on here. And again, it goes back to something I've talked about pretty regularly: lack of transparency, lack of communication, and just it's kind of the wild, wild west over there. You don't know if it's a problem or if it's intentional. You don't know if it's a test. You just don't know anything. So eBay, if you're listening, a little communication goes a long, long way. Is this true in any relationship? All the while, eBay's tech image overhaul is media manipulation covering up executive leadership failures. eBay is seeking, oops, I went too far there. Sorry about that. Expert help, they said, to turn around outdated tech reputation with a new technology communications role, leveraging media connections and PR to promote Chief Technology Officer Mazen Rarashta, a position as a top tier technology company. Based on what we just talked about, I'm not sure they are a top tier technology company. I know they like to fancy themselves as such, but there's way too many problems and issues for my taste. The lead manager technology communications role, as it will be called, will be tasked with conceiving and delivering tactical elements of the comms strategy for the chief technical officer and other tech leaders at the company, with an emphasis on strong external media presence, working hand in glove with agency partners to bolster eBay's brand and reputation. So this is not the kind of communication that I was just talking about. This is self-congratulatory, promotional, not particularly useful or helpful, not directed at buyers or sellers, but directed to the press. This is PR. This is make eBay look good rather. And again, I always hate to be that guy, but this is not about them fixing a problem or running a test and communicating to the people who are going to be involved in those things what is actually going on. This is just strictly PR. But there you go. That's what they got going on. They're adding a new person to their PR stream. Mercari, we've talked about this when they made the change back in March to all of the fees being paid by the buyer. I talked again about the lack of transparency because those fees that were going to be charged to the buyer were not shown until, much like Ticketmaster, you got to checkout. So I gave the example, I think a couple of weeks ago, of an item that I was looking at for the YouTube studio here, and I found one on Mercari, and I was like, oh boy, that's a good deal. I should do that. And by the time I got to the shopping cart, there were all those added fees, and it was no longer competitive on price. So what Mercari has done is run a test showing buyer fees on the item page to avoid what they call cart abandonment at checkout. Mercari US is tweaking the item page design to provide buyer fee transparency before checkout, as a major strategy shift fails to deliver hoped for short-term gross merchandise volume results. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, that the change that they made has attracted more sellers, and more items to be listed, but it has not translated yet, at least into more sales. And one of the reasons that sellers continue to talk about, or rather buyers continue to talk about on the video I did when this all took place back in March, is that they're not going to buy there with all these extra fees and the fact that these fees were not being disclosed. Since the marketplace dropped selling fees and instituted buying fees in March, consumers have experienced massive sticker shock at checkout with multiple additional fees tacked on, prompting unflattering comparisons to airline fees or worse yet, buying tickets, as I just said. From Ticketmaster, after months of public complaints and lagging buying activity, Mercari appears to be trying something new by testing out showing an estimated fee breakdown on the item page for users who are logged into their account. So you have to be logged in for this to work. Here's what the buyer experience with the new fee structure looked like in March. And they show basically an item with just the regular price. And then when you add it to your cart, you get all those extra fees. You get the service fee, you get the payment processing fee, and of course, if there's delivery fees and so on. So this, in the case of the example on screen here, a $225 item all in ended up being $279.39, which would give you sticker shock. The new experience, and again, you may be able to see this if you're watching on YouTube. Here's an item, it's a $100 price, and there is actually a little box right below it that says $25.52 delivery and fees. It doesn't break out the fees on that, but I believe you can click that box, which will then open up and show you the delivery fee, the service fee, and the estimated payment processing fee. That is only estimated, of course, because they don't know what the tax is yet, and they charge that payment processing fee on tax, which I know is also occasionally a contentious topic. But anyway, this started rolling out last week. I've seen it on mine, so it is something that appears to be fairly widespread. Again, I'm always all about transparency. I like this. I like that they're doing it. I like that they're showing those fees right up front, so you as a buyer can make an informed decision before you go through all the hoops of adding the item to your cart and deciding yes or no, I want to buy it or not. So good on them for trying that. We'll see how that works. Let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube if you've seen that yet and what you think of that change. Last bit of reselling news, more trouble at Amazon. They're sending out more warnings that appear to be in error, more Amazon bot troubles as sellers get business insurance expiration warnings in error. This posted on July 5th. Amazon sellers are scrambling to re-upload business insurance information after another, quote, bots gone wild situation sends warnings in error. First, it was seeds and plants that we talked about last week, and now it's business insurance. What is going on? This user said on the back end. First, it was a round of seeds and plants violations, and now our business insurance was supposed not submitted, and we have been ignoring multiple Amazon emails. I don't think so, they said. Insurance valid, approved, and still in the back end of the account. And this is the first email that we have received. It's getting harder and harder just to survive here with all of these false violations. It's one of the reasons I have chosen, we're going to talk a little bit in the What Sold segment, that you can make money on other sites selling even books and not have to deal with all this kind of stuff. Obviously, as we just talked about, there are problems on all these sites, but Amazon seems to be having a particularly bad time of it right now with these erroneous seller warnings going out by email, threatening to delist items or to suspend sellers. In the case of this, if you don't have your insurance in a row, they can stop your account. So this one says, help, just got this message. Even though my insurance is approved and valid until November 2024, according to our records, they said, we have not received details of your commercial insurance policy after multiple email follow-ups. My insurance documentation, they said, was uploaded and approved about 9 months ago. It still shows as verified successfully in the business insurance section of Seller Central. Multiple sellers posting about this issue, multiple sellers getting this email. Hopefully, again, much like the seeds thing from last week, that they get it fixed. Contacting seller support, the seller support people essentially said you could safely ignore that message. I guess for me, if I went into my back end there and looked and saw that my insurance information was still posted and was still listed as valid, I probably wouldn't be too concerned about it. But this stuff always brings up flags and makes you super, super nervous. So that, my friends, is what's going on with the news. I wish it was better than it is, but It's just one of those weeks. So let's get into some better news and talk about selling books on eBay and Etsy. So, if you follow me over on Instagram, I already talked about that it was a really good week last week. I did, gosh, 97 listings sold. 105 new ones went up, but 97 listings sold was a pretty good one. And it was by dollar volume, my single biggest week ever. And that's on the strength of a few things that we're going to talk about in today's What Sold segment. So I talk about this all the time. There are a lot of people who feel like if you're selling books, you've got to be on Amazon. And I talked a little bit about it in the live, and I continue to kind of harp on this. You can absolutely make money selling books just doing eBay, Etsy. I do also do Mercari, but I don't sell a ton of stuff over there, a few items a week, and generally it's all the kind of the lower value stuff. So like in today's, I've got 13 and they're all from eBay and Etsy. But there is definitely opportunity there. If you want to become a bookseller, but you don't want to mess with Amazon, you can absolutely do quite well there. So we're going to go through these and talk about where they came from and how much money I made on them. So this first one, Dizionario Moderno Alfredo Panzini Accademico d'Italia. This is an Italian language dictionary from 1931. It was actually in really nice condition. I've had this for, gosh, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe a little more than that. I had it listed, I think, for $39.99. I was running it on sale and I got an offer. It was on sale for $22. I received an offer for $20. I've had it for a long time. I went ahead and took the offer. When we get to the cost of goods sold, you'll know why. So this book sold for $20, $7.83 for shipping. So the total of the order was $29.67 with tax, $4.39 in fees. Shipping was only $6.35. For some reason, I guess I misestimated what the shipping would be by a little bit. So I made a little bit on the shipping. Cost of goods sold was less than a nickel, 4 cents. This was part of the big 15,000 book lot from a couple of summers ago. So really nice sale. $20 turned into $17.05. This sale over on Etsy, Quartet Stories by W. Somerset Maugham and screenplays by R.C. Sheriff. This was a hardcover published back in 1950. I am running my 10% off sale right now still on Etsy. This book was listed at $24.99, sold for $22.49 plus shipping. The order total was $28.82. I paid $2.84 in fees, $4.13 in shipping. This came from that same 15,000 book lot, so my cost of goods sold again was 4 cents. $22.49 sale over on Etsy turned into $19.61 in net profit. This is an interesting one and not a book for a change. This is a VHS video, Dayton, Ohio trolleys with map footage from 1947. I picked this up at an estate company's warehouse sale. Oh gosh, maybe 2 months ago. Picked up a whole bunch of stuff, I talk about railroading memorabilia and railroading books and stuff like that all the time. They had a bunch of it at this warehouse clearance, and I essentially bought all of it. I paid $1 for this. This sold for $24.99 plus shipping. The order total was $31.38. I had $3.89 in fees. This did sell through the promoted listings program, so $2.20 in ad fees. Cost of goods sold again was $1, so my total costs were $13.48. This $24.99 sale generated $17.90 in final net profit. Neat old. I wish I had a VCR. I would have liked to actually have seen this. So Dayton, Ohio trolleys. VHS does still sell. Some categories do better than others, but these random old train videos seem to do pretty well for me. Back over to Etsy. Meditations of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. I think I said that correctly, by Donahue and Henneberry. This was a hardcover from, I want to say, the 1920s. This was listed for $34.99 and sold for $31.49 plus shipping. Fees were $3.72. Cost me $4.13 to ship. My cost of goods sold was 91 cents. This is from the big antique book lot that I did 3 or 4 weeks ago. You're going to see a bunch of stuff from this lot in this week's What Sold recap. It has been fantastic. So 91 cents cost of goods sold. My total cost with all the fees and everything was $11.61. So this sale was $31.49 and generated a net profit of $26.86. Another one on Etsy, The Happy Valley by Eric Byrne. This was a illustrated hardcover with its dust jacket from 1968, illustrated by someone named Sylvie Seelig on Grove Press. The dust jacket was actually fairly rough on this. It had some damage at the top and was pretty yellowed, but there were very few out there of this book at all, and very few with the dust jacket. This actually sold overseas, so I'm not running a sale in any country besides the US on Etsy. So this sold for full price, $32.99. The customer paid $28.92 in shipping to have this shipped, I believe, to the UK. So the order total was $61.91. I paid $4.19 in fees. This is also from that 15,000 book lot. So this is another one with a cost of goods sold of 4 cents. Total cost $33.15. A $32.99 sale netted me $28.76. Not too shabby. This is another one from that estate buyout. So this is another 91 cent old book, The Holy Bible, containing the Old and New Testaments, published by the American Bible Society back in 1865. So this is Civil War era. Hardcover in pretty rough condition. The cover was really damaged. There was a lot of moisture staining, a lot of tanning, a lot of foxing. This book was fairly rough. It was intact. It did appear to have all its pages. The spine was holding together despite the cover being super rough. But from 1865, with a cost of goods sold of 91 cents, I thought it was worth taking a shot. I had it listed, I believe, for $39.99. I received an offer of $35, which I went ahead and took. Customer paid shipping of $8.57. This is one of those that I actually charged media mail shipping, but because of putting this in a box, it went out ground advantage cubic on pirate ship and saved me a little bit of money on shipping. I only paid $7.27 to ship this. The order total all in was $46.46. My total costs were $20.97. So this $35 item netted me $25.49. Couple of more old books from that estate buyout. Les Miserables, Volume 1 and 2 by Victor Hugo. These were leather books published by J.M. Dent over in the UK back in 1913. I had these listed as a pair because it was 2 volumes. $39.99. I received an offer of $35, which I went ahead and took. $4.87 shipping. So the order total $39.87. $5.76 in fees. Cost of goods sold for these two, 91 cents times 2, $1.82. My total costs $12.45. Another $35 sale turned into $27.42. These old books can be just really, really good. I talk about it pretty regularly. Just because a book is old does not necessarily mean it's valuable. I go to some of these estate sales, and if you're a bookseller, I know you've probably experienced this as well. And they have every old book in the place marked $5, $6, $8, and they're $4.99 free shipping type books on eBay. So you do have to kind of watch. This again was a bulk purchase where I bought 300 odd books. I think it was 366 books total for $300 is what this deal worked out to be. And I've been wading my way through them, and there has been a lot of very, very good stuff there. This was from the estate buy that I did a few weeks ago where they had all of the old science books. Architectural Graphic Standards, 5th edition by Ramsey and Sleeper, published by John Wiley. It was an illustrated hardcover from 1956. Picked this up at that estate sale for $1.64. That's essentially how I come up with these cost of goods sold. So if I, like in the example I just gave you, 366 books I paid $300 for. That worked out to about 91 cents a piece. This was the same kind of deal. I bought 122 books, I think, for $200, if I remember correctly. So this worked out to $1.64. Sold it for $35.99 on sale over at Etsy, $7.83 in shipping, which is exactly what it cost me to ship this thing. The order total was $47.24. My total costs were only $17.41, so the net profit on a $35.99 book was $29.83. Back over to eBay. And back over to that antique book lot, The Second Advent of the Lord Jesus Christ, a Past Event by Robert Townley. This was published way back in 1854. This book was actually, the contents were in pretty good shape. A little bit of tanning, a little bit of foxing, but overall really clean. The cover, however, was very rough. It was a cloth kind of hardcover, and the cloth was peeling away in multiple areas. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that normally what I do is I take a picture of the outside of the book first, unless it is in particularly bad shape and or does not show what the title of the book is. In this case, because of the damage, the title didn't show anywhere on the outside. So I took a picture as my main photo of the title page. So again, this book was the 91-cent cost of goods sold. This thing sold for $64.99 plus shipping. Paid $10.63 in fees. This did sell through the promoted listing program, so $5.32 worth of ad fees. Again, that cost of goods sold 91 cents. $27.93 were my total costs, so $64.99 turned into $48.13. Continuing on eBay and continuing with that same lot of books, The Keepsake of Friendship, a Christmas and New Year's annual for 1854. Again, you see these old books can be just outstanding. This was an illustrated hardcover, actually in pretty good condition. I had it listed for, I believe, $99.99. Got an offer for $85. Again, I own it for 91 cents. So this was well within what I wanted to get out of this book. Customer paid, of course, shipping. So the total was $95.18. My fees were $13.21. No ad fees on this one. I sold this within 24 hours of listing, and I normally do not promote books or anything within the first 24 hours. I give it a day to run its course and see if anybody's going to snap it up without promoting it. So in this case, it sold right away, no ad fees. Total costs were $24.30. So this $85 sale netted me $70.88. Here's another one. I talked about a couple of weeks ago how I don't mind listing these $4.99, $5.99 plus shipping books. Most of my own for next to nothing anyway, so I can make a little bit of money on them. But sometimes you get a situation like this where a customer made an order of 24 books in total. This happened over the July 4th holiday, so this was a big pull on Friday. 24 books total across, I think, 8 or 9 listings. There were several that were lots of 3 or 4 old sci-fi books. This was an interesting pickup. So of these 24 books, there were 23 that you could consider to be kind of sci-fi and horror, and then there was a Bible. To cleanse the palate, maybe. I don't know, but it was just it struck me as really odd. All that sci-fi and horror, and then a Bible. Anyway, 24 books total. The customer's total price for everything was $93.22 plus shipping. They paid $16.86 for combined media mail shipping. Again, this was a case where it was cheaper to use Pirate Ship's Ground Advantage cubic rate. So my cost to ship these was only $10.46. So I made a little over $6 in the shipping, which is always fun. I did pay $16.62 in fees, and this guy found me through the promoted listings, so I did pay $8.42 in ad fees. But the order total was $120.52, $93.22 sold price netted me when it was all said and done $59.39. So this was not the most profitable sale ever, much closer to 50%, a little over 50% net, where normally it's quite a bit higher than that. A, because of the fees, and B, because a lot of these were really low value. But I cleared out a bunch of old inventory that had long since paid for itself. 24 books, 8 or 9 listings, cleared out a bunch of space, and essentially had cash flow of $90-odd. So good sale. I will take those all the time. Now we're into a couple of the fun ones. So In any other week, this would be your flip of the week. This week, it's not, which is pretty amazing to me. So these next two books are also from that antique book estate buyout. So my cost of goods sold on both of these is 91 cents. This first one is The History of the Underground Railroad by R.C. Smedley, who was a doctor. This was a first edition hardcover published back in 1883. The cover was a little bit rough, particularly on the spine. The pages were pretty clean, obviously tanned. But a book that old is going to have some wear and tear on it. But overall, compared to ones I could see from other sellers that had sold in the past, it was in reasonably good condition. Sale prices had ranged anywhere from about $250 to mid fours on this. I listed mine for $349.99 or best offer. It got a couple of watchers. I sent out my 15% off offer and sold this book for $297.49 plus media mail shipping. Customer paid $29.48 in sales tax, so the order total was $331.84. Fees were not a lot of fun, $45.05. The customer had found this through a promoted listing, so I also paid $23.23 in promoted listings fees, so $68, almost $69 in fees. Not ideal, but it is what it is. I did upgrade this to Ground Advantage shipping. I did also pay for insurance on this, so my shipping cost was a little bit higher as well, $8.49. But again, with a cost of goods sold at just 91 cents, it was going to make good sense either way. Total costs were $107.16, so this $297.49 book netted me $224.68. Not too shabby, but not as good as this one. So I'm loading up. I'm at this estate closeout, and I'm hauling away my last tub of stuff. And off to the side, there is a stool sitting there next to the sliding glass door. And the woman who was there, the granddaughter of the person whose estate it was, said, "Hey, there's this stack of papers and stuff on this stool. Do you want to just take these too?" And I said, "Sure, I'll clean it out for you." I didn't really think much of it. Nothing there jumped out at me. It just looked like a random stack of stuff. But in that random stack of stuff turned out to be this old book. So this is What Say the Scriptures About Hell. It was published by the Tower Bible and Tract Society in January of 1896. There were a bunch of these from different years and different publishers, ranging from the late 1800s through the mid 1900s. The lowest sale price was clearly somebody who did not do any research on it at all. They listed it for $30 and sold it for $30, and probably sold it really, really quickly, because if I had seen it, I would have bought it once I found out what they were worth. And this is one of those cases where it pays to do some research. So I went in, and there were none of these listed on eBay, and I pulled up the solds, and in the recent solds was just that one for $30. Again, this was essentially free to me because I'd already accumulated everything that I knew I was buying at that sale. So I recorded this as part of the purchase as 91 cents cost of goods sold, but it was essentially a throw in at the end. So I went into product research and found about another 8 or so of these that had sold over the last 3 years, ranging from about $200 to about $350. So I listed mine at $349.99. I had the oldest one that I could see that was listed. This was one that was from this Tower Bible and Tract Society, which later became, I believe, Watchtower publications. So this is kind of one of those Seventh-day Adventist things. Really unusual piece because it was old, even though it was not in the best condition. And mind you, this is like a 78 or 79 page little booklet. This is not a full hardcover. This is just an old paperback tract from this Bible company. I listed it for $349 or best offer, $349.99 or best offer. I put it up on Mercari for, I think, probably $65. And I had someone reach out to me on Mercari almost right away and asked if I would take $150 for it. And I said, no, I really can't do that. The average selling price of these is quite a bit higher than that. And within 5 minutes, I had an offer on eBay for $300. I happened to be driving at the time that offer came through, so I couldn't respond right away. I got where I was going. I looked at my phone again and I had two messages. One, that $300 offer had been retracted, and my heart sank. And the next one was that the same potential buyer had now offered $325 for this item. I guess in theory, maybe I could have listed this for a little bit more or held out for a little bit more. But if he had just watched it from the price I had it listed for, this would have been within the window that I would have accepted an offer anyway. So this book, which was essentially free to me, was sold for $325 plus shipping. Customer all in was $355.42. This is another one that I did not have time to promote, so I paid just the regular fees, $48.22. I did again upgrade this to Ground Advantage, and I did again pay for insurance. So I did spend $8.52 to ship this. My total costs $83.94. So this $325 sale netted me $271.48, which is pretty terrific by any measure. So that is the end of what was, like I said, my not by transaction volume. I've had busier weeks in terms of how many transactions I've done, but in terms of dollar volume, this past week was my best week ever, even with holidays and all the rest of it. On the strength, of course, of those two items. I wish there were more like that in those tubs, but I think I'm through all the super high value stuff now. Let me know what you think of those two. Would you have held out for a little more money on that second one or not? But I was blown away when I looked that thing up and found that it was worth that kind of money. So again, old books and eBay and Etsy can absolutely make you money. You do not have to necessarily be on Amazon in order to sell books profitably. Um, I hope that message lands. If you got something from that or anything in this show, please do me a favor if you have not already and hit that thumbs up button. If you would like to share this with any of your like-minded reselling friends, that would be awesome as well. If you're not currently a subscriber or a follower of the podcast, please consider doing that as well. I'm inching my way towards 1,500 subscribers, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Would definitely like to get to that number. Memberships are also available. Thank you to the 3 people who are currently members. If you'd like to do that, you do get access to these shows a little bit early as well. With that, my friends, we're going to put a wrap on this thing. Hope everybody had a good 4th of July holiday, that business is picking up a little bit for you like it did for me last week. Knock wood that continues. And now it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.